The alarm screamed through the Threnoid mining station at exactly 0400 hours. Foreman Clickster rolled out of his sleep pod, his forearms fumbling for his communicator. Nothing good ever happened at 0400 hours. What now? He growled into the device. Sir, you need to see this. The voice belonged to young Pelmore, one of the newer miners. He sounded scared. Drill 7 hit something. Something big. Clickstar pulled on his environment suit and made his way to the drilling platform. The asteroid they were working on was supposed to be pure ice and mineral deposits. Easy money. 3 months of work and they could all retire. But as he approached Drill 7, he saw his crew standing back, staring at the hole they had made. Well? Clickstar demanded. What is it? Pelmore pointed down into the darkness. Metal, sir, lots of it. And it's warm. That made no sense. They were in deep space, far from any star. The ice should be hundreds of degrees below zero. Clickster activated his suit's scanner and pointed it down the hole. The readings made his blood run cold. The object was massive. It stretched for kilometers inside the asteroid, and it was definitely metal. Not just any metal either. The scanner identified it as human construction. But that was impossible. Humans had been locked in their home system for 300 years. Stop all drilling, Clickstar ordered. Send a message to the council. We just found something they need to know about. 3 days later, a council science vessel arrived. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo stepped off the transport and looked around the mining station. She was the only human on the team, and she could feel the other scientists watching her. Some with curiosity, others with suspicion. Sarah had spent her whole life trying to escape Earth's quarantine zone. She had degrees in ancient technology and xenoarchaeology. When the council needed someone who could read old human languages, they had no choice but to hire her. But they never let her forget that she was a human, a species deemed too dangerous for the stars. Dr. Okonkwo, the lead scientist, a tall Kryn named Javik, nodded to her. Your expertise may prove useful here. Sarah followed the team down to the excavation site. Workers had cleared away tons of ice, revealing a section of hull plating. Even covered in frost and scored by time, she recognized the design immediately. Her heart began to race. This is a warship, she said quietly. Human military design. Pre-quarantine era. Javik's feathers ruffled with interest. Can you identify which vessel? Sarah moved closer, brushing away ice with her gloved hand. There, barely visible, were markings. Letters and numbers in Old Earth military code. She translated slowly. UHSV, United Humanity Space Vessel. She cleared more ice. Her breath caught. Dying Light. The other scientists froze. Everyone in the galaxy knew that name. It was legend. Myth. The story parents told their children about why humans were dangerous. 300 years ago, humanity had burst into galactic space with weapons and ambition. The Council had tried diplomacy, but humans wanted to expand, to claim worlds, to spread like a virus. War had been inevitable, and the humans had fought with a fury that shocked the galaxy. The Dying Light had been their flagship, a supercarrier so large it could dock 50 smaller ships inside its hangars. During the final battle at Crucible Nebula, it had destroyed 17 Council dreadnoughts before disappearing into a spatial anomaly. Everyone assumed it had been destroyed, but here it was, frozen in time, waiting. We need to report this immediately, Javik said. The Council must decide what to do. Sarah nodded, but her mind was racing. The Dying Light. The ship that had made the Council fear humanity so much they locked them away from the stars. And now it was here, preserved in ice like a fly in amber. That night, Sarah sat in her quarters and stared at her communicator. What she was about to do could get her arrested, possibly executed, but she had to try. She encoded a message using an old Earth frequency that she prayed someone still monitored. The message was simple. They found the Dying Light, come home. She sent it toward Earth and deleted all evidence from her system. Then she lay in her bunk and wondered if anyone would receive it. If anyone on Earth even remembered the great ship. If anyone still cared. On Earth, in a hidden facility beneath the ruins of Old Geneva, Admiral Marcus Webb received the message. He read it 3 times, his hands shaking. Then he pressed the alarm that had waited 3 centuries to be activated. Wake everyone, he said to his second-in-command. It's time. In the council chambers on the capital world of Tharnox, politicians argued for 3 days straight. Councillor Vexthar, a senior Threnoid representative, stood before the assembly and demanded action. The human warship must be destroyed, he declared. We cannot allow it to fall into human hands. They are quarantined for a reason. It is a historical artifact, another counselor argued. We should study it, learn from it. Learn what? Vexthar's voice rose. Learn how to kill more efficiently? Learn why we were right to cage humanity? We already know these things. Destroy the ship and scatter its atoms. Let it become dust as it should have 300 years ago. The debate continued. Some wanted to study the ship. Others wanted it destroyed. A few brave voices suggested perhaps it was time to reconsider humanity's quarantine. Those voices were shouted down quickly. Finally, the council reached a decision. A fleet would be sent to the asteroid. They would dismantle the dying light carefully, studying what they could, then destroy what remained. Humanity would never touch their lost flagship again. Admiral Korthax received his orders with mixed feelings. He was old enough to remember the stories his grandfather told about fighting humans, about how they never gave up even when beaten, about how they turned every battle into a funeral pyre for both sides. 6 dreadnoughts, his tactical officer said, reviewing the fleet assignment. Surely that's excessive for a derelict. Korthax looked at the young officer and saw his own grandson's age reflected there. Too young to remember, too young to understand. My grandfather fought at the Battle of Proxima, Korthax said quietly. He commanded a heavy cruiser. The humans had 3 destroyers, 3, the humans 1. Do you know why? The tactical officer shook his head. Because humans do not know when they are beaten. They fight until they are dead. And sometimes they fight even after that. 6 dreadnoughts is not excessive. 6 dreadnoughts is barely enough. Korthax pulled up the fleet roster. And tell the commanders to keep their shields up at all times. The council fleet arrived at the asteroid 2 weeks later. Sarah watched from the observation deck of the science vessel as the massive warships took up positions around the mining site. It seemed like overkill for a dead ship. Work crews began cutting into the ice in earnest now. Massive laser drills carved away layers of frozen water. Bit by bit, the dying light emerged from its tomb. The ship was enormous, bigger than Sarah had imagined. Its hull was scarred from battle, pocked with holes where weapons had struck home. But underneath the damage, she could see the beauty of its design. Humans had built this ship to project power, to inspire awe, and even dead and frozen it succeeded. Remarkable, Javik said, standing beside her. I have studied human military history extensively. This ship represents the peak of their engineering. The weapon systems alone were decades ahead of Council technology. Were? Sarah asked. Javik's feathers ruffled, and what she had learned was embarrassment. Are, perhaps. We have not shared our military advances with your people. Because you're afraid we might use them. Yes. Javik was honest, at least. Your species has a gift for warfare. It is both admirable and terrifying. Deep inside the dying light, something stirred. The laser drills had been cutting through ice for days, and each burst of energy registered on long-dormant sensors. Power trickled through ancient circuits. Systems that had been dead for 3 centuries began to wake. In the ship's core, an artificial intelligence designated Dawn ran a diagnostic check. 97% of its systems were damaged or offline. Life support was critical. The main reactor was cold. Weapons were intact. That was interesting. Dawn accessed its last memory files. The date was incorrect. Significant time had passed. It ran the calculation 3 times to be sure. 302 years, 7 months, 13 days. The crew would need to be awakened. But slowly. The cryogenic systems had been damaged. Not everyone would survive. Dawn made decisions. It was built to protect the crew and complete the mission. The crew needed protection. The mission was incomplete. Therefore, Dawn would act. It sent power to the cryogenic bay and began revival protocols for the senior officers. It diverted energy to sensors and communication systems. And it began gathering data about the ships surrounding them. Captain Aldrich Chen opened his eyes to red emergency lighting. His body felt wrong. Too cold, too stiff. His muscles screamed as he tried to move. For a moment he couldn't remember where he was. Then the memories flooded back. The battle. The Crucible Nebula. The Council fleet bearing down on them. The desperate jump into the anomaly. Then nothing. Done, he croaked, his voice raw. Status report. The AI's voice filled the small cryogenic chamber. Captain Chen, revival successful. However, I must inform you that significant time has passed since our last engagement. How long? 302 years, 7 months, 14 days. Chen closed his eyes. 300 years? Everyone he knew was dead. Earth had gone on without him. The war was over, and humanity had clearly lost if they'd been left frozen in space for 3 centuries. The crew? Cryogenic systems sustained heavy damage. I am calculating a 37% survival rate for revival attempts. 4,300 personnel are already beyond recovery. Chen felt each loss like a knife. His crew, his responsibility. Begin revival for all surviving personnel. Medical staff first, then engineering. How many ships are around us? Sensors detect 6 large vessels consistent with Council dreadnought design. Multiple smaller craft. We are surrounded, Captain. Chen pulled himself out of the cryogenic pod and looked around the bay. Other pods were beginning to open. Men and women stumbled out, confused and disoriented. They looked to him for answers. Listen up, Chen said, his voice gaining strength. We've been asleep for 300 years. We're surrounded by Council ships, and we're about to find out if humanity survived without us. He looked at each face. But one thing hasn't changed. We're still the dying light, and we don't surrender. Get to your stations. Sarah was in her quarters when the first sign appeared. The lights on the dying light flickered on. Just for a second, a brief pulse of power running through dead systems. She sat up straight, her heart pounding. It couldn't be. The ship had been dead for 3 centuries. But even as she thought it, she knew. Human ships were built with redundancy on top of redundancy. They were built to survive, to endure, to keep fighting even when they should be dead. She accessed the mining station's sensors and pointed them at the dying light. Energy readings, faint but growing stronger. Heat blooming in the engineering sections. And then impossible but unmistakable life signs. Sarah grabbed her communicator, then stopped. Who would she tell? The Council would panic. They would attack. But if she stayed silent and the ship powered up fully, people would die. She made her decision. She recorded everything her sensors were picking up and attached a single-word message. Run. Then she sent it on all frequencies, encrypted and unencrypted, hoping someone aboard the dying light would receive it, hoping that after 300 years, humans still recognized a warning when they saw one. In the Council fleet, Admiral Korthak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Every sensor on his flagship was screaming alerts. The dying light was powering up. Reactor heat was rising. Weapon systems were coming online. His tactical officer looked at him with wide eyes. Sir, what are your orders? Korthak's thought about his grandfather's stories. About human determination. About how they never knew when they were beaten. He thought about the ship before him. Dead for 3 centuries, now coming back to life like a ghost seeking revenge. Battle stations, he said quietly. Shields to maximum. And send a message to the Council. Tell them the dying light lives. Tell them we may need reinforcements. The officer paled. Reinforcements? Sir, we have 6 dreadnoughts. Yes, Korthak said, watching the dead ship's lights come on one by one. I hope it's enough. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the dying light and tried not to think about how many of his crew were dead. The revival process had been brutal. Medical teams worked around the clock, but 300 years of frozen sleep had damaged bodies beyond repair. Out of 40,000 crew members, only 8,000 survived. 8,000. It would have to be enough. Engineering reports main reactor at 15% and climbing, Lieutenant Morrison called out. She looked young, too young. But then Chen remembered she was probably in her 50s now by calendar years. They'd all aged 3 centuries in their sleep, even if their bodies hadn't. Life support? Patchy. We have atmosphere in about 40% of the ship. The rest is sealed off, Chen nodded. The dying light was dying, just living up to its name. But it was still alive, and that meant they had a chance. Don, what's our weapon status? The AI's calm voice filled the bridge. Magnetic accelerator cannons are functional at 67% capacity. Missile tubes are loaded, but launch systems require maintenance. Point defense systems are operational. Nuclear arsenal is intact. Of course it is, Chen muttered. Human weapons were built to last. Built to kill, even after 300 years. What about the ships around us? 6 Council dreadnoughts maintaining position at 5,000 kilometers. Multiple smaller vessels conducting excavation operations. They appear to be attempting to dismantle our outer hull. Chen felt anger rise in his chest. They were cutting up his ship. Treating the dying light like scrap metal, like it was already dead. Open a channel. All frequencies. Captain, are you certain? Morrison asked. Once we reveal we're alive, they're going to figure it out anyway. At least this way we control the narrative. Chen straightened his uniform, torn and stained from the cryogenic process. Open the channel. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, sir. Chen took a breath. The next words would change everything. Attention, Council Fleet. This is Captain Aldrich Chen of the United Humanity space vessel Dying Light. We are very much alive, and you are currently dismantling a sovereign military vessel without permission. I strongly suggest you stop. Silence filled the channel. Chen could imagine the chaos his words were causing on the council ships. A dead ship speaking. A captain who should have been dust 3 centuries ago demanding they stop. Finally, a response came. This is Admiral Korthax of the Council Defense Fleet. Captain Chen, you are ordered to stand down and prepare for boarding. Your vessel is in violation of the quarantine zone and... Admiral. Chen's voice was ice. We were here first. We've been here for 300 years. If anyone is in violation, it's you. He paused. Now I'm going to give you one chance. Withdraw your ships. Leave us alone, and maybe we can all walk away from this. You are surrounded, Captain. You are damaged. You cannot possibly hope to... Chen cut the transmission. He looked at his tactical officer. Show them. The tactical officer grinned. It was not a pleasant expression. Yes, sir. Targeting solution locked. Firing magnetic accelerator cannon number 3. Deep in the Dying Light's wounded hull, ancient machinery came to life. Magnetic coils charged with stolen power. A 200-ton slug of tungsten was loaded into the firing chamber. Mathematics older than most species in the galaxy, calculated trajectory, speed, and impact. The cannon fired. The tungsten slug accelerated to 40% the speed of light in 3 seconds. It passed through the empty space between 2 council dreadnoughts, missing each by less than 100 meters. The shockwave of its passage rattled both ships, shaking them like toys. Alarms screamed. Shields flickered and failed. The slug continued into deep space, carrying enough kinetic energy to shatter a moon. Admiral Korthax watched his tactical display in horror. One shot. One demonstration shot had nearly crippled 2 of his ships. And the Dying Light had dozens of those cannons. Sir, damage reports coming in from Steadfast and Valiant. Shield generators offline. Hull stress across multiple sections. No casualties, but I understand. Korthax stared at the human warship. It looked dead. Broken. But it had just proven it still had teeth. Sharp teeth. He opened a private channel to Chen. That was well played, Captain. Not a game, Admiral. This is survival. We didn't come back from 300 years of death to surrender now. What do you want? Time. We need time to repair our ship, to figure out what happened to Earth, to understand this new galaxy we've woken up in. Chen's voice softened slightly. I don't want to fight you, Admiral. We've all had enough fighting. But I will if I must. Korthax made a decision that would probably end his career. Withdraw all salvage teams. Pull back to 10,000 kilometers. But understand, Captain, my orders are to neutralize your vessel. I am buying you time, but the Council will send more ships. Ships I cannot hold back with words. I understand. Thank you, Admiral. The channel closed. Korthax looked at his bridge crew. You heard the captain. Pull back. And send a message to the Council. Tell them the situation has changed. Tell them we need diplomats, not more warships. His tactical officer looked dubious. Sir, they'll send more warships, I know. But maybe the diplomats will arrive first. Korthax pulled up data on Earth's quarantine zone and find out what's happening at the Sol system. If the Dying Light is awake, humanity knows about it by now. He was right. At Earth, Admiral Webb stood before the assembled leaders of humanity's secret government. For 300 years, humanity had pretended to be beaten, pretended to accept their cage. But in hidden shipyards built into asteroids using technology salvaged and improved, they had been preparing. The message is confirmed, Webb said. The Dying Light is active. Captain Chen is alive. And they're surrounded by a council fleet at the Crucible Nebula. How long to reach them? President Achebe asked. 6 months at maximum burn with our current ships. We don't have human FTL technology. We've had to steal and reverse engineer council technology, and it's not perfect. 6 months. Achebe looked around the room at the other leaders. We waited 300 years. We can wait 6 more months. But I want every ship we have ready to launch. If the council wants to finish what they started, they'll learn we're not so easy to kill. Webb nodded. We have 20 ships. Cruisers mostly. Not as large as Council dreadnoughts, but fast and heavily armed. We've had 3 centuries to think about how to fight them. Then we launch, and we pray Captain Chen can hold out until we arrive. Back on the dying light, Chen walked through the damaged corridors of his ship. Medical teams carried the dead toward the morgue. Engineering crews welded patches over hull breaches. Everyone worked with desperate intensity. He found Dr. Sarah Okonkwo in one of the maintenance airlocks. She'd managed to steal a shuttle and fly to the dying light before the Council could stop her. Security had brought her to him under guard. "Dr. Okonkwo," Chen said, "thank you for the warning. It gave us precious minutes to prepare." Sarah looked at the legendary captain. He was shorter than she'd imagined. More tired, but his eyes held steel. "I couldn't let them destroy you. Not after you survived 300 years. You're human. You helped us. Why?" "Because I'm human," Sarah said simply. "Because I've spent my whole life watching from the outside while the galaxy moved on without us. Because the dying light is more than a ship. It's proof that we existed, that we mattered." Chen studied her for a long moment. "We need all the help we can get. What do you know about the current Council? Their politics? Their military capabilities? Everything. I've studied them for years." Sarah smiled. "And I can tell you exactly how to scare them into negotiating. I'm listening." Over the next weeks, the dying light slowly repaired itself. Dawn diverted power with brutal efficiency, prioritizing weapons and shields over crew comfort. The ship remained partially frozen, sections exposed to vacuum, life support failing in dozens of areas. But the weapons worked. The shields held. And slowly the great carrier became dangerous again. Javik watched from the science vessel with growing unease. He'd come to study an ancient artifact. Instead, he was watching a resurrection. The dying light was coming back to life, and each day it grew stronger. "We should have destroyed it immediately," Vexthar said over the communication channel. The counselor had arrived on a fast courier to observe the situation. "Instead, we hesitated, and now we face a fully armed human warship." "Not fully armed," Javik corrected. "My sensors indicate the ship is badly damaged. Perhaps 30% combat effective." 30% of the dying light is still more dangerous than most ships at full capacity. Vexthar's image showed his frustration. "What is Admiral Korthax doing? Why hasn't he attacked?" "Because attacking would cost lives. Many lives. And the Admiral is wise enough to know that." Javik looked at his sensor readings. "Besides, something else concerns me. I've been monitoring human communication frequencies. There are coded messages being sent toward the Sol system. So, humanity has been locked in their system for 3 centuries. What can they do?" Javik pulled up data he'd been analyzing. "We assumed humanity remained primitive without FTL technology. But what if we were wrong? What if they've been building in secret? The dying light's existence proves humans can survive when we think them dead. What else have they survived?" Vexthar was silent for a long moment. "You think Earth is sending ships? I think we should prepare for that possibility." On Earth, the fleet launched. 20 ships, crewed by Council standards but armed with 3 centuries of human ingenuity and rage. They burned hard toward the Crucible Nebula, knowing they might arrive too late, knowing they might arrive only to die. But going anyway, because that's what humans did. Aboard the lead ship, Admiral Webb recorded a message to Captain Chen. He had no way of knowing if Chen would receive it, no way of knowing if the dying light would still exist when they arrived. But he recorded it anyway. "Captain Chen, this is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received word of your situation. We're coming. It will take us 6 months, but we're coming. Hold on. Humanity hasn't forgotten you. We never forget our own." The message beamed out toward the Crucible Nebula, traveling at the speed of light. Chen received it 3 weeks later. He listened to Webb's words, and for the first time since waking, he smiled. Earth had not given up. Humanity had not been broken. They were coming home, and they were bringing weapons. "Dawn," Chen said. "How long can we hold out against the Council fleet if they attack?" "With current resources and damage, I estimate 17 minutes of combat effectiveness before catastrophic failure." 17 minutes. Chen nodded. "Then we need to make sure we don't fight for 17 minutes. We need to make them afraid to fight us at all. How do you propose we accomplish this?" Chen looked at the tactical display showing the Council ships. "By doing what humans do best. By making them believe we're more dangerous than we actually are. By bluffing so hard they don't dare call it." Over the next days, the Dying Light ran constant weapons tests, firing targeting lasers at asteroids, charging magnetic cannons, cycling missile tubes. Each test was visible to Council sensors. Each test was a message: we are armed. We are dangerous. We are ready. Admiral Korthax watched the demonstrations and felt his grandfather's warnings echo in his mind. Humans were at their most dangerous when cornered, and Captain Chen was very much cornered. "Sir, the Council is sending reinforcements," his tactical officer reported. 4 more dreadnoughts. Arrival in 3 weeks. 10 dreadnoughts. Korthax shook his head. "They're escalating. This is becoming a war. Isn't that what the Council wants? To finish what they started 300 years ago? Some of them, yes. But others?" Korthax pulled up intelligence reports on Earth's quarantine zone. Reports that showed suspicious activity. Hidden construction. Energy signatures that didn't match a primitive civilization. Others are about to learn that caging an enemy doesn't kill them. It just gives them time to sharpen their claws. Chen stood on the bridge and looked at his crew. 8,000 souls! All that remained of 40,000. They were exhausted, running on stims and desperation. The ship was held together with welds and prayers, but they were alive. They had survived 300 years of death. They could survive a few more months. "Status report," he ordered. "Main reactor at 40%. Shields at 60% maximum capacity. Weapons fully operational. Life support restored to 70% of the ship." Morrison looked up from her console. "We're as ready as we're going to be, sir." Chen nodded. 6 months until Earth's fleet arrived. 6 months to hold out against an increasingly hostile council. 6 months to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Then we wait. We repair, we prepare. And we show the galaxy that the Dying Light isn't just a name. He looked at the forward view screen, at the stars they'd been denied for 3 centuries. We show them that humanity burns bright. And we don't go gentle into that good night. The crew cheered. It was a tired sound, but genuine. They were alive. They were awake. And they were not finished. Not by a long shot. In the council chambers, news of Earth's launch reached the assembled politicians. Panic spread like fire. Humanity had FTL. Humanity had warships. Humanity was coming to reclaim their lost flagship. "We must destroy the Dying Light before they arrive," Bexthar demanded. "Destroy it and scatter its crew. Show humanity that defiance means death." But other voices rose in opposition. Voices that remembered the cost of the First War. Voices that understood pushing humans too hard meant everyone died. The debate raged on. The galaxy held its breath. And in the Crucible Nebula, aboard a ship that refused to die, Captain Aldrich Chen smiled and waited for humanity to come home. "Because I'm human," Sarah said simply. "Because I've spent my whole life watching from the outside while the galaxy moved on without us. Because the Dying Light is more than a ship. It's proof that we existed, that we mattered." Chen studied her for a long moment. "We need all the help we can get. What do you know about the current council? Their politics? Their military capabilities? Everything. I've studied them for years." Sarah smiled. "And I can tell you exactly how to scare them into negotiating. I'm listening." Over the next weeks, the Dying Light slowly repaired itself. Dawn diverted power with brutal efficiency, prioritizing weapons and shields over crew comfort. The ship remained partially frozen, sections exposed to vacuum, life support failing in dozens of areas. But the weapons worked. The shields held. And slowly the great carrier became dangerous again. Javik watched from the science vessel with growing unease. He'd come to study an ancient artifact. Instead, he was watching a resurrection. The Dying Light was coming back to life, and each day it grew stronger. "We should have destroyed it immediately," Bexthar said over the communication channel. The counselor had arrived on a fast courier to observe the situation. "Instead, we hesitated, and now we face a fully armed human warship." "Not fully armed," Javik corrected. "My sensors indicate the ship is badly damaged. Perhaps 30% combat effective." 30% of the Dying Light is still more dangerous than most ships at full capacity. Bexthar's image showed his frustration. "What is Admiral Korthax doing? Why hasn't he attacked?" "Because attacking would cost lives. Many lives. And the Admiral is wise enough to know that." Javik looked at his sensor readings. "Besides, something else concerns me. I've been monitoring human communication frequencies. There are coded messages being sent toward the Sol system." "So? Humanity has been locked in their system for 3 centuries. What can they do? Javik pulled up data he'd been analyzing. We assumed humanity remained primitive without FTL technology. But what if we were wrong? What if they've been building in secret? The dying light's existence proves humans can survive when we think them dead. What else have they survived? Vexthar was silent for a long moment. You think Earth is sending ships? I think we should prepare for that possibility. On Earth, the fleet launched. 20 ships, crewed by Council standards but armed with 3 centuries of human ingenuity and rage. They burned hard toward the Crucible Nebula, knowing they might arrive too late, knowing they might arrive only to die. But going anyway, because that's what humans did. Aboard the lead ship, Admiral Webb recorded a message to Captain Chen. He had no way of knowing if Chen would receive it, no way of knowing if the dying light would still exist when they arrived. But he recorded it anyway. Captain Chen, this is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received word of your situation. We're coming. It will take us 6 months, but we're coming. Hold on. Humanity hasn't forgotten you. We never forget our own. The message beamed out toward the Crucible Nebula, traveling at the speed of light. Chen received it 3 weeks later. He listened to Webb's words, and for the first time since waking, he smiled. Earth had not given up. Humanity had not been broken. They were coming home, and they were bringing weapons. Dawn, Chen said. How long can we hold out against the Council fleet if they attack? With current resources and damage, I estimate 17 minutes of combat effectiveness before catastrophic failure. 17 minutes. Chen nodded. Then we need to make sure we don't fight for 17 minutes. We need to make them afraid to fight us at all. How do you propose we accomplish this? Chen looked at the tactical display showing the Council ships. By doing what humans do best. By making them believe we're more dangerous than we actually are. By bluffing so hard they don't dare call it. Over the next days, the Dying Light ran constant weapons tests, firing targeting lasers at asteroids, charging magnetic cannons, cycling missile tubes. Each test was visible to Council sensors. Each test was a message: we are armed. We are dangerous. We are ready. Admiral Korthax watched the demonstrations and felt his grandfather's warnings echo in his mind. Humans were at their most dangerous when cornered, and Captain Chen was very much cornered. Sir, the Council is sending reinforcements, his tactical officer reported. 4 more dreadnoughts. Arrival in 3 weeks. 10 dreadnoughts. Korthax shook his head. They're escalating. This is becoming a war. Isn't that what the Council wants? To finish what they started 300 years ago? Some of them, yes. But others? Korthax pulled up intelligence reports on Earth's quarantine zone. Reports that showed suspicious activity. Hidden construction. Energy signatures that didn't match a primitive civilization. Others are about to learn that caging an enemy doesn't kill them. It just gives them time to sharpen their claws. Chen stood on the bridge and looked at his crew. 8,000 souls! All that remained of 40,000. They were exhausted, running on stims and desperation. The ship was held together with welds and prayers, but they were alive. They had survived 300 years of death. They could survive a few more months. Status report, he ordered. Main reactor at 40%. Shields at 60% maximum capacity. Weapons fully operational. Life support restored to 70% of the ship. Morrison looked up from her console. We're as ready as we're going to be, sir. Chen nodded. 6 months until Earth's fleet arrived. 6 months to hold out against an increasingly hostile Council. 6 months to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Then we wait. We repair, we prepare. And we show the galaxy that the Dying Light isn't just a name. He looked at the forward view screen, at the stars they'd been denied for 3 centuries. We show them that humanity burns bright. And we don't go gentle into that good night. The crew cheered. It was a tired sound, but genuine. They were alive. They were awake. And they were not finished. Not by a long shot. In the Council chambers, news of Earth's launch reached the assembled politicians. Panic spread like fire. Humanity had FTL. Humanity had warships. Humanity was coming to reclaim their lost flagship. We must destroy the Dying Light before they arrive, Vexthar demanded. Destroy it and scatter its crew. Show humanity that defiance means death. But other voices rose in opposition. Voices that remembered the cost of the First War. Voices that understood pushing humans too hard meant everyone died. The debate raged on. The galaxy held its breath. And in the Crucible Nebula, aboard a ship that refused to die, Captain Aldrich Chen smiled and waited for humanity to come home. The ice cracked with a sound like thunder. Throughout the dying light, crew members grabbed onto whatever was bolted down as the ship shuddered. Captain Chen felt the vibrations through the deck plates and knew what was happening. They were breaking free. Report, he barked. Ice shell fracturing across all sections, Morrison called out. Thrusters at maximum. We're tearing ourselves out of the asteroid. Hull integrity? Holding. Barely. Chen watched the forward display as chunks of ice the size of buildings broke away from the carrier. The dying light had been frozen in its tomb for 3 centuries. Now it was time to leave. Dawn. Give me everything the thrusters have got. Warning. Current stress levels may cause additional hull breaches. We're already breached in a dozen places. A few more won't matter. Punch us out of this rock. The thrusters fired at full power. The dying light groaned and screamed. Metal bent. Welds strained. But slowly, meter by meter, the massive carrier pulled free from the ice. A cloud of frozen debris surrounded the ship as it broke loose, creating a glittering storm of ice crystals that reflected the distant stars. On the Council dreadnought Steadfast, Admiral Korthax watched in amazement as the human carrier freed itself. They actually did it. I didn't think they had enough power. Sir, the dying light is mobile, his tactical officer reported. Limited maneuvering capability, but they're definitely free of the asteroid. Of course they are. Korthax had stopped being surprised by human determination. Inform the fleet. Battle stations. But do not, I repeat, do not fire unless fired upon. Admiral, our orders from the Council, I know our orders. I'm choosing to interpret them carefully. Korthax looked at the scarred hull of the human carrier. Besides, if we attack now, we'll have to explain to the Council why we started a war that could have been avoided. Let Chen make the first move. Chen had no intention of making the first move. He was buying time, nothing more. Every hour the dying light remained mobile was another hour closer to Earth's fleet arriving. But he also knew he needed to show strength. Show the Council that attacking would cost them dearly. How many ships do they have around us now? Chen asked. 10 dreadnoughts, 6 cruisers, multiple support vessels, Tactical reported. They've been reinforcing steadily. We're heavily outnumbered, sir. Numbers don't tell the whole story. Chen pulled up a tactical analysis Dawn had prepared. Their ships are spread out. They're maintaining distance, probably afraid of our magnetic cannons. That's good. It means they respect us. Respect won't matter if they all fire at once, Morrison pointed out. True, which is why we need to make sure they don't. Chen opened a channel to Sarah, who was working in the intelligence section. Dr. Okonkwo, tell me you have good news. Sarah's voice came through clearly. Depends on your definition of good news. I've been monitoring Council communications. They're divided. About half want to attack. The other half want to negotiate. But both sides agree on one thing. They don't know what you're capable of. Perfect. We'll keep it that way. Chen closed the channel and looked at his bridge crew. Listen up. We're going to run a demonstration, something that will make them think very carefully before attacking. What kind of demonstration? Morrison asked. Chen smiled. It was not a kind expression. The kind that reminds them why they locked humanity away in the first place. Throughout the galaxy, news of the dying light's awakening spread like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, people watched their screens in fascination and fear. The humans were back. The species that had fought the Council to a standstill 3 centuries ago had returned, and their legendary flagship was free. On the Kryn homeworld, young warriors gathered in halls to watch footage of the dying light tearing free from its icy prison. Javik watched with them, his grandfather's stories suddenly feeling more real. The old Kryn had fought at Proxima. He'd seen what humans could do when pushed to the edge. Grandfather, Javik said quietly, you told me humans were the most dangerous species you'd ever faced. I thought you were exaggerating. The old warrior shook his head. I was understating it, grandson. When a human decides to fight, they don't fight to win. They fight to make you wish you'd never started. He gestured at the screen showing the dying light. That ship should be dead. Everyone aboard should be dust. But they're not. Because humans refuse to accept what should be. On Tharnox, Counselor Vexthar watched the same footage with growing dread. He'd pushed for the dying light's immediate destruction. Now it was too late. The ship was mobile, armed, and clearly willing to fight. And Earth's fleet was coming. How long until the human ships arrive? He asked his aide. 4 months, 17 days based on current trajectories. And how long until we can assemble enough firepower to guarantee we can destroy the dying light? The aide hesitated. Sir, the military advisors say there is no guarantee. The dying light's capabilities are unknown. It might take 20 dreadnoughts. It might take 50. And even then, the cost in lives would be unacceptable, Vexthar finished. He'd fought for humanity's quarantine, believing them too dangerous to trust. Now he was learning that caging a dangerous species just gave them time to become more dangerous. Set up a communication channel with the human captain. If we can't destroy them, perhaps we can contain them. Chen was running his demonstration when Vexthar's request came through. He considered ignoring it, but decided information was more valuable than silence. This is Captain Chen. Captain, I am Counselor Vexthar. I believe we should talk before this situation escalates beyond control. Talk about what? Your ship's dismantling mine? Your species caging mine for 3 centuries? Or should we talk about how you're surrounding us with warships right now? Vexthar's image on the screen showed a being trying to maintain composure. Captain, I understand your anger. But you must see the situation from our perspective. Your species waged war against the Council. You destroyed countless ships, killed millions, because you gave us no choice. Chen's voice was hard. We came to the stars looking for friends and found jailers instead. You demanded we follow your rules, accept your laws, bow to your council. When we refused, you attacked. We just defended ourselves. You expanded aggressively into space we had settled. Space is infinite, Counselor. There was room for everyone. But you wanted us controlled, contained, made docile. Chen leaned forward. Well, congratulations. You locked us away for 300 years. And now you're going to learn what happens when you cage an apex predator. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Earth is sending ships. When they arrive, you'll face a choice. You can try to destroy us all, which will cost you more lives than you can afford. Or you can accept that humanity is back and we're not going anywhere. Your choice. Chen cut the transmission before Vexthar could respond. He looked at Morrison. How's our demonstration coming? Target asteroid selected. All magnetic cannons charged and ready. Fire. The dying light's main battery fired as one. 6 magnetic accelerator cannons released their tungsten slugs simultaneously. The projectiles tore through space at nearly half the speed of light, crossing the distance to the target asteroid in seconds. The impact was spectacular. The asteroid, a rock 3 kilometers across, simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy of the slugs vaporized it instantly, creating an expanding cloud of superheated plasma visible across the entire system. Every sensor in the Council fleet registered the demonstration. Every tactical officer calculated what would happen if those slugs hit a dreadnought instead of a rock. The answer was obvious. The dreadnought would share the asteroid's fate. Message received, Captain. Admiral Korthax sent on a private channel. Though I believe you've just terrified the Council into making this worse, not better. Good, Chen replied. Fear breeds caution. Caution keeps everyone alive long enough to talk. But Chen had miscalculated. Fear also bred desperation. And desperate politicians did desperate things. In the Council chambers, the vote came swiftly. 15 members voted to authorize military action against the dying light. 12 voted against. 2 abstained. The motion carried. The Council authorizes Admiral Korthax to neutralize the human vessel by any means necessary, the Speaker announced. The quarantine must be maintained. Humanity must be contained. This is the will of the Council. Korthax received his orders and sat in his command chair for a long time. He'd hoped diplomacy would prevail. He'd hoped sense would win out over fear. He'd been wrong. Sir? His tactical officer asked quietly. Your orders. Korthax looked at the 10 dreadnoughts under his command. Good ships. Good crews. He knew executing these orders would cost lives. Many lives. But he was a soldier. Soldiers followed orders. All ships, battle formation. Prepare to engage the dying light. He opened a channel to Chen. Captain, I've received orders to neutralize your vessel. I'm giving you one chance to surrender. Power down your weapons. Prepare to be boarded. If you comply, I give you my word your crew will be treated fairly. Chen's response was immediate. Admiral, you seem like a decent being, so I'm going to be honest with you. We didn't survive 300 years in the dark to surrender now. If you attack, we'll fight, and yes, you'll probably win. But ask yourself, how many of your ships will I take with me? How many of your crew will die? Is following those orders worth that cost? Korthax closed his eyes. The human was right, of course. The dying light would die, but it would take several dreadnoughts with it. Thousands of lives lost on both sides, for what? To maintain a quarantine that was already broken? But orders were orders. I'm sorry, Captain. I truly am. Korthax looked at his crew. All ships charge weapons. Prepare to fire on my mark. Chen watched the Council ships power up their weapons. He'd known this moment would come. He'd hoped Earth's fleet would arrive first, but hope wasn't a strategy. Now he had to buy time the hard way. All hands battle stations. Dawn, give me firing solutions on all enemy ships. We're going to make them pay for every meter they take from us. Solutions calculated, Dawn replied. Captain, I should inform you that our chances of survival are now estimated at 0.7%. I never was good at math anyway. Chen gripped his command chair. Ready weapons. Stand by to— Captain! Morrison shouted. New contacts. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Chen's heart leaped. Earth's fleet? Negative. Wrong trajectory, identifying— Sir, they're not Council ships either. Unknown configuration. On every screen throughout the system, new ships appeared. Not human. Not Council. Something else entirely, and they were transmitting a message on all frequencies. This is the Viridian Star Collective. We are here to mediate this dispute. All parties will stand down immediately. Admiral Korthax stared at his tactical display in shock. The Viridians, an isolationist species that hadn't been seen in galactic space for over a century. They'd withdrawn from Council politics long ago, declaring the galaxy too violent for their taste. And now they were here. 12 ships, sleek and elegant, positioning themselves between the Council fleet and the dying light. Why? Korthax wondered aloud. Why would they involve themselves now? His intelligence officer had the answer moments later. Sir, I'm reading data files from the Viridian ships. They've been monitoring the situation. They claim the Council's actions against humanity were unjust from the beginning. They're demanding a neutral hearing. Chen couldn't believe what he was seeing. Reinforcements from an unexpected source. Not allies exactly, but certainly not enemies either. Dawn, what do you know about the Viridians? Limited data. They are technologically advanced, philosophically pacifist, but militarily capable. Their intervention suggests they believe the current situation threatens galactic stability. Or maybe they just don't like bullies, Morrison suggested. Chen opened a channel to the Viridian flagship. This is Captain Chen of the Dying Light. I appreciate your intervention, but I have to ask, why are you helping us? The Viridian commander appeared on screen. They were tall, slender beings with luminescent skin that shifted through subtle colors. Captain Chen, we are not helping you specifically. We are preventing a massacre. The Galactic Council's treatment of humanity was wrong 300 years ago. It remains wrong today. We will not stand by and watch them compound their error. The Council has authorized us to neutralize the human vessel, Korthax transmitted. This is Council space. Council jurisdiction. This is open space, Admiral, the Viridian commander replied calmly. And we recognize no authority that condemns an entire species for wanting freedom. Stand down or we will be forced to intervene. The standoff hung in the balance. 10 Council dreadnoughts, 1 damaged human carrier, 12 Viridian ships of unknown capability, and Earth's fleet still months away. Finally, Korthax made his decision. Stand down. All ships hold fire. He looked at his tactical officer. Send a message to the Council. Tell them the situation has become more complicated. Tell them we need new orders. Chen let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. The immediate crisis had passed. But he knew it was temporary. The Council wouldn't back down forever, and when Earth's fleet arrived, the real test would begin. But for now they had time. Time to repair, time to prepare, time to prove that humanity deserved to be here. The galaxy watched. And for the first time in 3 centuries, humanity watched back. 3 months passed intense standoff. The Viridian ships maintained their position between the Council fleet and the dying light, a living barrier preventing violence. Chen used the time well. His crew worked double shifts repairing the carrier, welding hull breaches, restoring systems that had been dead for centuries. But everyone knew the peace couldn't last. Earth's fleet was coming, and when they arrived, everything would change. Admiral Korthax spent those months studying human history. He read everything available about Earth's wars, their culture, their philosophy. He needed to understand the species he might have to fight. What he learned both impressed and terrified him. Humans didn't just fight battles. They turned warfare into an art form. Every conflict taught them new lessons. Every defeat made them stronger. And they never ever forgot an insult. 300 years of quarantine had not diminished their fire. It had only banked it, waiting for the right moment to blaze again. "Sir, we're detecting multiple FTL signatures," his tactical officer reported, coming from the direction of Sol System. 20 contacts, Korthak sat up straight. "The human fleet." "Yes, sir. They'll be in range within the hour." The Admiral opened a channel to Chen. "Captain, your reinforcements are arriving. I assume you're pleased." Chen's face on the screen showed exhaustion but also determination. "Pleased that humanity remembered us? Yes, pleased that this is about to turn into a bloodbath? No," he paused. "Admiral, I've gotten to know you these past months. You're an honorable being. You follow orders even when you disagree with them. So I'm asking you directly. Does it have to end in violence? The Council's orders are clear. Humanity must return to quarantine. Your fleet must turn back. You must surrender your ship. You know we won't do any of those things. I know." Korthax felt the weight of command pressing down on him, which is why we're both about to do things we'll regret. Earth's fleet dropped out of FTL in formation. 20 ships smaller than Council dreadnoughts but bristling with weapons. Admiral Webb broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Earth Defense Fleet. We've come for our people. We've come for our ship. And we've come to reclaim our place among the stars. Stand aside." The Council fleet powered up weapons. The Viridians moved to intercept. And the dying light, battered but defiant, prepared for battle. "Dawn," Chen said quietly. "Calculate a firing solution that causes maximum damage while minimizing casualties." "An interesting contradiction, Captain. Maximum damage typically requires maximum casualties. Work with me here. Target weapons systems, engines, anything that disables ships without destroying them. Targeting parameters updated. However, I must note that the enemy will not show the same restraint. Probably not, but we have to try." Chen looked at his crew. Young faces and old, all watching him, waiting for orders. "If we have to fight, we fight smart. We survive. And we make sure our sacrifice means something." Morrison spoke up. "Sir, receiving transmission from the Viridian commander. They're requesting all parties stand down for negotiations." "Fat chance of that," Chen muttered. But he opened the channel anyway. "What kind of negotiations?" The Viridian commander's luminescent face showed concern. "Captain Chen, Admiral Korthax, Admiral Webb, this battle will accomplish nothing except death. The Council fears humanity will seek revenge. Humanity seeks freedom. There must be a middle ground." "The middle ground was rejected 3 centuries ago," Webb transmitted harshly. "We tried peace. We were answered with war and imprisonment." "Then perhaps it's time to try again," the Viridian pressed. "With witnesses this time. With guarantees. With species like mine willing to enforce the terms." Counselor Vexthar's image appeared on the shared channel. He'd been monitoring from Tharnox. "The Council does not recognize your authority to mediate, Viridian. This is a Council matter." "This is a galactic matter," the Viridian commander replied. "One that threatens to destabilize all our civilizations. Do you truly believe you can fight humanity again and win? Look at them. 20 ships against your mighty fleet, and they came anyway. Lock them in their system for another 3 centuries, and they'll emerge with 200 ships. Then 2,000. When does it end?" Vexthar started to reply but was cut off by another voice. "He's right." Admiral Korthak spoke clearly. "I've studied human history. They don't stay beaten. They don't give up. We can kill them, but we can't break them, and trying will cost us more than we can afford. Are you suggesting we surrender to human demands?" Vexthar sputtered. "I'm suggesting we stop making this worse. 300 years ago we made a mistake. We can either admit it and move forward, or we can fight a war that will make the first one look like a minor skirmish." Silence filled the channel. Every ship in the system waited. Billions across the galaxy watched their screens, holding their breath. Then Counselor Vexthar made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "Stand down. All Council ships, stand down. I'm ordering an emergency Council session. We will discuss terms," Chen exhaled. "Crisis averted. For now." But not everyone got the message in time, or perhaps some chose not to hear it. 2 Council cruisers, their captains young and eager to prove themselves, broke formation and accelerated toward the dying light. "We have inbound hostiles," Tactical shouted. 2 cruisers, weapons hot. Chen had no time to think, only to react. Dawn defensive fire. Disable them. The dying light's point defense systems engaged. Laser batteries designed to shoot down missiles tracked the approaching cruisers and fired. One cruiser took hits across its bow, shields collapsing, engines flaring out. It tumbled away, disabled but intact. The second cruiser fired back. Plasma bolts hammered into the dying light's weakened shields. Alarm screamed across the bridge. Shields at 40%. Return fire. Chen ordered. Magnetic cannon, minimal charge. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. The cannon fired. The tungsten slug, fired at only 20% the speed of light, struck the cruiser's engineering section. The ship's spine broke. Atmosphere vented. It began to drift, powerless, but it had done damage. The dying light's shields flickered and failed. Hull plating, already weakened from centuries of ice, cracked. Section 7 lost pressure. 20 crew members died before emergency bulkheads sealed. Chen felt each death like a personal wound. Get damage control teams to Section 7. Dawn shield status? Shields offline. Repairs will take 6 hours minimum. 6 hours. 6 hours exposed and vulnerable. Chen looked at the tactical display. The Council fleet was standing down. But all it would take was one more hothead. One more captain looking for glory, and the dying light would die for real this time. Admiral Webb saw the same tactical situation. All ships defensive formation around the dying light. If anyone wants to finish them off, they go through us first. Earth's fleet moved to surround the damaged carrier. Small ships protecting their legendary ancestor. It was a brave gesture. It was also tactically foolish. If the Council fleet attacked now, they could destroy all 20 ships plus the dying light in minutes. Korthax watched the human ships move into position and felt something unexpected. Respect. They knew they were outgunned. They knew they would probably die. But they moved anyway, placing themselves between danger and their comrades. That was courage. True courage, sir, his tactical officer said quietly. We have a clean shot. All of them. We could end this right now. Yes, Korthax agreed. We could kill them all. And then what? Earth would send more ships. We'd have to glass their entire planet to make sure humanity died. Could you do that? Could you order the death of an entire species? The tactical officer was young but not stupid. No, sir. I couldn't. Neither could I. Korthax made a decision that would define the rest of his life. Communications open a channel to all ships. Council fleet, Earth fleet, Viridian ships, everyone. When the channel opened, Korthax stood from his command chair. My grandfather fought at Proxima. He told me stories about facing humans in battle. He said they were the most terrifying and most honorable enemy he'd ever faced. Today I understand what he meant. He paused, choosing his words carefully. 300 years ago we defeated humanity in battle, but we didn't break them. We just taught them to hate us. I will not pass that lesson to another generation. I will not start a war that will consume the galaxy for the next 3 centuries. Korthax looked at his bridge crew. By the authority vested in me as Fleet Admiral, I am ordering all Council ships to lower their battle flags. The bridge erupted in shock. Sir, you can't. I can and I am. The battle flag is lowered in respect to a worthy opponent. It acknowledges courage and honor. And if there's one thing these humans have shown, it's courage and honor. He looked directly at Chen's face on his screen. Captain Chen, the Council fleet salutes you. Across the Council fleet, battle flags slowly lowered. It was the highest honor one military force could give another, an acknowledgement of equality, of respect earned through combat. Chen stared at his screen in disbelief. He'd expected death. Instead, he was receiving honor from his enemy. Admiral, I don't know what to say. Say nothing. Just survive. You've earned that much. Korthax closed the channel and sat back down. His career was over. He disobeyed direct orders from the Council. But he'd also prevented a massacre. He could live with that. On ships across the galaxy, military personnel watched the footage of the Council fleet lowering their flags. Species that remembered fighting humanity, that had lost family members in the wars 3 centuries ago, began doing the same. Not in surrender. In respect. On the Kryn homeworld, old warriors lowered their banners. On Tharnox, the planetary defense fleet followed suit. On 100 worlds, soldiers and sailors acknowledged that humanity had earned something 300 years ago, and had earned it again today. the right to exist as equals. Councillor Vexthar watched it all from his chambers and felt the political ground shift beneath him. He'd wanted humanity destroyed. Now the galaxy was honoring them. The quarantine was over, whether the council officially ended it or not. Humanity was back, and there was no putting that particular genie back in the bottle. Perhaps, he said quietly to himself, we should have tried talking to them before we tried killing them. On the dying light, Chen gathered his crew. They were battered, exhausted, and 20 of their friends were dead. But they were alive. They had survived. And they had changed history. We came back from 300 years of death, Chen said. We faced a fleet that could have destroyed us. And we earned their respect. Not through surrender, not through submission, but through courage and determination. He looked at each face. Our journey isn't over. There will be negotiations, debates, arguments, but the hard part is done. Humanity is back among the stars. And this time we're staying. The crew cheered. It was a tired sound, but genuine. They had done the impossible. They had survived. Admiral Webb docked his flagship with the dying light hours later. When he met Chen in the docking bay, the two men simply stared at each other for a moment. 300 years separated them. Chen had left an Earth at war. Webb had grown up on an Earth in chains. Welcome back, Captain, Webb said finally. Good to be back, Admiral. Chen looked at the younger man. Tell me about Earth. Tell me everything. They walked through the damaged corridors of the dying light together, and Webb told him about the 3 centuries humanity had endured. The quarantine, the secret rebuilding, the determination to never accept their cage. And Chen told Webb about the battle that had stranded them in time, about waking to find everything they knew was gone. 2 admirals, 2 eras, 1 species that refused to die. Outside, the council fleet maintained position, but their weapons were powered down. The Viridians kept watch, ensuring peace held, and across the galaxy, billions watched and wondered what would come next. The dying light had risen. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. The dying light limped toward Earth, escorted by both human and council vessels. It was an unprecedented sight. Former enemies traveling together, weapons powered down, watching each other warily but without hostility. The galaxy watched every moment of the journey. Captain Chen stood on the bridge and looked at the view screen. Earth grew larger with each passing hour. 300 years since he'd seen home. 300 years since he'd walked on grass, breathed real air, felt sunlight on his face. He'd left Earth as a young man fighting for humanity's freedom. He was returning as a legend, Captain, Morrison said softly. You should see this. She transferred an image to his personal screen. It showed Earth orbit, and what he saw made his throat tight. Ships, hundreds of them. Not warships. Civilian vessels from across the solar system had gathered to welcome the dying light home. Mining ships, cargo haulers, colony transports, even small pleasure craft. All of them broadcasting the same message. Welcome home. Sir, the communications officer called. We're receiving a transmission from Earth. President Achebe wants to speak with you. Chen straightened his uniform. It was still torn and stained from the cryogenic revival, but it was all he had. Put her through. President Achebe appeared on screen. She was an elderly woman with kind eyes that had seen too much hardship. Captain Chen, on behalf of all humanity, welcome home. You and your crew are heroes. You proved we could not be broken. You proved we deserved our freedom. Madam President, we just survived. It was Earth that saved us. Earth that built a fleet and came for us. You survived for 300 years, Captain. That's not just surviving. That's refusing to die out of pure spite. She smiled. Very human of you. When you're ready, we have medical facilities prepared for your crew. And then we have some decisions to make about what comes next. The dying light docked at Earth's largest orbital station 3 days later. Medical teams swarmed aboard immediately. Chen's crew needed treatment for the effects of long-term cryogenic storage. Some had injuries from the battle. All needed psychological support for the trauma of losing 3 centuries. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo coordinated the medical response. She'd become essential to the dying light during those long months of standoff. Now she found herself bridging the gap between Chen's crew from the past and Earth's people from the present. It's strange, she told Chen as they watched crew members reunite with a humanity they no longer recognized. To them, the war ended yesterday. To us, it's ancient history. How do we reconcile that? Carefully, Chen replied. very carefully. In the council chambers on Tharnox, the real battle was just beginning. Not with weapons, but with words. The debate over humanity's status consumed the council for weeks. Some demanded the quarantine continue. Others, inspired by Admiral Korthax's actions, called for full recognition of humanity's rights. Councillor Vexthar found himself in an uncomfortable position. He'd spent decades arguing humanity was too dangerous to trust. Now he was forced to admit that perhaps he'd been wrong. Not completely wrong, humans were dangerous. But being dangerous and being evil were different things. The Viridian delegation made their position clear. Humanity would be granted full council membership, or the Viridians would form an alliance with Earth and withdraw from the council entirely. That threat changed calculations. The Viridians were technologically advanced and economically powerful. Losing them would hurt. Finally, after 6 weeks of debate, the vote came. 31 in favor of ending the quarantine, 16 against, 3 abstentions. Humanity would be granted provisional council membership, with full status pending a 5-year evaluation period. Vexthar cast the deciding vote. When asked why he changed his position, he said simply, "Because Admiral Korthax was right. We can't break them, and trying will only break us. Better to have them as difficult allies than determined enemies." The terms were announced publicly. Humanity would dismantle their quarantine perimeter. They could trade freely, travel freely, settle new worlds. In exchange, they agreed to council regulations on weapons development and military expansion. And one specific condition: the Dying Light would be decommissioned. Chen read the terms and felt conflicting emotions. Freedom for humanity, but death for his ship. The vessel that had survived 3 centuries, that had defied the council, that had carried them through darkness back to light. It seemed wrong to kill her now. Admiral Webb met with him that night in a bar near the orbital station. They drank whiskey that had aged 300 years while waiting for Chen to wake up. "The council wants the Dying Light gone," Chen said, staring into his glass. "They're afraid of her. Afraid of what she represents." "Can't say I blame them," Webb replied. "That ship kicked their ass 300 years ago and was about to do it again. But maybe there's another way." "What way?" "We don't have to destroy her. We just have to retire her." Webb leaned forward. "We turn the Dying Light into a memorial, a museum, a reminder of what happened and why it must never happen again. She becomes a symbol of peace earned through strength." Chen considered it. The idea had merit. The Dying Light wouldn't fight anymore, but she wouldn't die either. She'd teach. She'd remember. She'd make sure no one forgot the cost of prejudice and the price of freedom. "I like it," Chen said. "But who would run such a memorial?" "I was thinking Dr. Okonkwo. She bridges both eras. She helped wake you up. She's perfect for it." Chen nodded slowly. "Let's make it happen." 3 months later, the ceremony was held. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered in Earth orbit. Ships from 100 species, including council dreadnoughts, human cruisers, and Viridian vessels, formed a massive formation around the Dying Light. The carrier had been partially repaired, enough to make her safe as a museum, but her weapons were removed. Her reactors were powered down to minimal levels. She would never fight again, but she would endure as she always had. Captain Chen stood on a platform visible to all the assembled ships. Behind him, the Dying Light hung in space, scarred but beautiful. He wore a new uniform now, crisp and clean, but he'd kept his old captain's insignia. "Some things you didn't replace." 300 years ago, Chen began, his voice broadcast across the system. "Humanity came to the stars with hope and ambition. We were met with fear and violence. The Dying Light was born from that conflict. She was built to fight, to destroy, to prove that humanity would not go quietly into extinction." He paused, looking at the gathered ships. "She did her job well. Too well, perhaps. She made the galaxy fear us. And fear led to more violence. More death. The quarantine that locked humanity away for 3 centuries. But the Dying Light also did something else. She survived. Through damage, through time, through 300 years of frozen death, she survived. And in surviving, she taught us something important. You cannot kill hope. You cannot destroy determination. You cannot break a species that refuses to accept defeat." Chen gestured to the carrier behind him. "Today we retire the Dying Light from active service. But we do not destroy her. She becomes a memorial. A reminder. She will teach our children and our children's children about the cost of war and the value of peace. She will stand as proof that humans and aliens can move past conflict toward cooperation." He looked directly at Admiral Corthax, standing on his own ship. And she will honor those who had the courage to choose peace over revenge. Those who lowered their flags in respect rather than raising their weapons in anger. Corthax, watching from his bridge, felt the weight of history in that moment. He'd expected to be court-martialed for his actions at Crucible Nebula. Instead, he'd been commended by the Council for preventing unnecessary bloodshed. His grandfather would have been proud, Chen continued. The Dying Light's crew will be released from service. We've been through enough. We've fought enough. It's time to let younger hands shape humanity's future. He smiled. Though we'll be available for consultation. Someone has to tell the embarrassing stories. Laughter rippled through the assembled crowd, human and alien. People appreciated humor as a way to ease tension. I named Dr. Sarah Okonkwo as curator of the Dying Light Memorial. She will ensure that this ship's story is told truly and completely. The good and the bad. The victories and the losses. Because history should never be sanitized. Chen looked at Sarah, standing nearby. Dr. Okonkwo, the ship is yours. Sarah stepped forward, tears in her eyes. I accept this honor and this responsibility. The Dying Light will stand as a bridge between species, between eras, between war and peace. All are welcome to walk her corridors, to learn her story, to understand why we must never repeat these mistakes. Then came the moment everyone had waited for. One by one, ships throughout the formation lowered their battle flags. Council ships, human ships, Viridian ships, vessels from species that had never even heard of humanity until recently, all of them honoring the Dying Light, honoring her crew, honoring the courage it took to step back from the brink. Chen watched the flags lower and felt something break inside him. Relief, grief, pride, all mixed together. They'd done it. They'd survived. They'd won, not through violence, but through endurance. The ceremony ended with a reception aboard the orbital station. Chen found himself surrounded by well-wishers. Young humans who'd grown up on stories of the Dying Light. Aliens who wanted to meet the legendary captain. Everyone had questions. Everyone wanted to shake his hand. He escaped to a quiet observation deck after an hour. He needed air, or at least the illusion of it. Admiral Corthax found him there looking out at Earth below. Captain Chen, the Admiral said. May I join you? Admiral. Yes, please. Chen gestured to the seat beside him. I wanted to thank you for what you did at Crucible Nebula. You saved a lot of lives. I followed my conscience. My grandfather taught me that honor means doing the right thing even when it costs you. Corthax looked at the Dying Light, visible through the observation window. Your ship is remarkable. I'm glad she'll be preserved. Your species built good ships too. You nearly beat us 300 years ago. Nearly. Corthax smiled. Humans are frustratingly difficult to beat completely. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Two warriors who understood each other better than most of their own people ever would. They'd seen combat. They'd made impossible decisions. They'd carried the weight of command. Tell me something honestly, Chen said. If your grandfather fought us at Proxima, and you nearly fought us at Crucible, are we doomed to keep fighting? Is there any chance for real peace between our species? Corthax considered the question carefully. My grandfather told me something before he died. He said the humans he fought were terrifying, but they were also fair. Once a battle ended, they treated prisoners well. They honored truces. They never lied in negotiations. He looked at Chen. He said if humanity had been given a chance at real diplomacy, there might never have been a war. But the Council didn't give us that chance. No. We saw your weapons and your expansion, and we reacted with fear. We assumed the worst. That was our mistake. Corthax stood. But we have a chance now to do better. To build something new. I intend to take that chance. I hope you do too. Chen stood and extended his hand. Deal. They shook, human and alien, former enemies, now something approaching friends. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Months passed. The Dying Light was converted into a memorial museum. Thousands visited daily. Children ran through corridors where soldiers had once fought. Students studied the battle damage and learned about the cost of war. Families from different species met and talked about how to prevent future conflicts. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo curated it all with careful attention to truth. She didn't hide humanity's mistakes or glorify the violence. She showed everything, the desperation, the courage, the fear, the determination. She made sure every species saw themselves in the story. because it wasn't just humanity's story, it was everyone's. Captain Chen retired to a small house in the mountains of Colorado. He tried to adjust to civilian life, to the earth that had changed beyond recognition. Some days were easier than others. Morrison visited often, as did other crew members. They needed each other, people who understood what they'd been through. Admiral Webb visited one day bringing news. The Council has officially granted humanity full membership. The probationary period is over. We passed with flying colors. Chen poured them both whiskey. That's good. That's really good. What happens now? Now we explore. We trade, we build. We do all the things we were supposed to do 300 years ago, but peacefully this time. Webb raised his glass. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, Chen echoed. And to old ships that refuse to die. They drank, watching the sunset over Earth. A planet that had survived quarantine, that had kept hope alive, that had built a fleet in secret and reclaimed its place among the stars. Years later, Chen visited the dying light for the last time. He was old now, his body finally catching up to the 3 centuries his mind had traveled. Sarah met him at the airlock. Captain, it's good to see you. Just Chen now. I'm not a captain anymore. He walked slowly through the corridors, his hand trailing along the walls. The ship felt different as a museum. Clean, safe, almost sanitized. But the scars remained. The reminders of battles fought and prices paid. They reached the bridge. It had been preserved exactly as it was during the standoff at Crucible Nebula. The command chair sat empty, waiting. Chen sat in it one last time. Dawn, he said quietly. Are you still here? The AI's voice filled the bridge, as calm as ever. Yes, Captain. I remain to tell our story to visitors. Good. That's good. Chen looked around the bridge. We did okay, didn't we? We survived. We brought humanity back to the stars. You exceeded all projected outcomes, Captain. You should be proud. I am. But I'm also tired. Chen stood slowly. Take care of her, Dawn. Take care of the ship. Make sure people remember why she mattered. I will, Captain. That is my mission now. Chen walked off the bridge for the last time. Sarah accompanied him back to the airlock. You know, she said, they're talking about naming the new explorer ships after you. The Chen-class cruisers. Chen laughed. I hope they're less beat up than my old command. They'll be different. Built for exploration, not war. But they'll carry your spirit. Determination, courage, refusal to accept the impossible. Sounds very human. It is. That's why the galaxy respects us now. Not because we're the best fighters, but because we're the best survivors. Chen left the dying light and returned to Earth. He died peacefully 6 months later, surrounded by his crew members who had become his family. He was buried with full military honors, his coffin draped with both Earth's flag and a flag bearing the dying light's emblem. Representatives from across the galaxy attended his funeral. Admiral Korthax gave a speech about courage and honor. Counselor Vexthar, now an advocate for human-alien cooperation, spoke about the cost of prejudice. Sarah shared stories of the man behind the legend. And high above Earth, the dying light's lights pulsed in a special pattern, a message in old Earth military code programmed by Dawn to activate at Chen's death. Fair winds and following seas. Well done, Captain. Well done. Decades passed. Then centuries. Humanity spread across the galaxy. Not as conquerors, but as equals. They built. They traded. They argued and debated and sometimes disagreed strongly with other species. But they never went to war again. The dying light remained in orbit around Earth, a constant reminder. Millions visited each year. Young humans and aliens walked her corridors together, learned her story together, and understood together why peace was worth fighting for. And on quiet nights when the station was empty and the stars shone bright, some said you could still hear the hum of the dying light's engines. Not really active, just echoing. A ghost of a ship that refused to die. A reminder that humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not through conquest, not through submission, but through determination, courage, and the simple refusal to give up hope. The dying light had risen. Humanity had returned. And the galaxy was better for it. The story ended, but the lesson remained. Never underestimate a species that refuses to accept defeat. Never cage a people who will spend centuries planning their return, and always respect those who earn their place through courage rather than through force. The galaxy had watched. The galaxy had seen humanity rise from 3 centuries of death. The galaxy had lowered its flags in respect. And humanity at last was home.